Today we're going to do a very quick lesson over the metric base units and their prefixes. You should have a note sheet, and basically as we go through this, make sure you add the words that are highlighted in yellow. In the metric system, there's what we call three metric base units. The base units are what we attach prefixes to. There's a base unit for length, a base unit for mass, and a base unit for volume. Length is simply the distance between 2 points, and in the English units of measurement, we tend to express distances in inches, yards, and miles. Now, the metric system, on the other hand, it's going to use the meter as the base unit, and basically we attach prefixes for a large quantity or a smaller quantity. So if we want to measure something small, we might say a millimeter. If we want to say something large, we might add a prefix like kilo and say a kilometer. One of the things we're going to do in this unit is we want to be able to change one unit to another. So just some conversions we need to kind of get used to. You don't have to memorize them, but you will eventually get to know them pretty well. A meter, for example, is 1.094 yards, and a kilometer is about zero point 0.6 of a mile. Now, a second base unit is mass. Mass is simply the amount of matter in an object. It's measured with a balance, and in the typical English units of measurement, we see mass expressed in ounces or pounds. The metric system, on the other hand, its base unit is simply the gram. And again, we add prefixes to the gram depending on how large the object's mass is. If we have a large object, we might have it in kilograms. If we have a small object, we might have it in centigrams or milligrams. One of the conversions we'll get used to is 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. The last base unit in the metric system is volume. Volume simply measures the amount of space an object takes up. It is a three-dimensional measurement. In the typical English units of measurement, we measure how much space something takes up in gallons or ounces. The metric system, on the other hand, the base unit of volume is the liter. Again, if we want a large quantity, we'd add a prefix like hectoliter or a kiloliter. If we want a small measurement, we might say a milliliter. Some typical conversions we are going to get used to is 1 liter is equal to 33.8 ounces, and a gallon is 3.78 liters. If you've ever traveled to another country, most other countries have the metric system as their typical unit, and you don't buy gas by the gallon, for example, you buy it by the liter. Now, lastly, one of the things we'll do in science is we also need to be mindful of there's more than one temperature scale. Temperature simply is the measure of heat energy, and the typical English unit of measurement is the Fahrenheit scale. Most of us are very familiar with water freezes at 32 Fahrenheit and it boils at 212 Fahrenheit. The metric unit tends to use Celsius or Kelvin as the temperature scale. Here's a couple of equations that we will keep in mind if we have to convert a Celsius to a Fahrenheit. Basically, if you have a Celsius and you want to know what it's in Fahrenheit, you take 9 divided by 5 and you multiply that by your Celsius and you add 32. That will give you an exact measurement of what that would be in Fahrenheit. Now, that's kind of complicated, so a general, quick, easy way to do it, to estimate, to give you a ballpark figure is if you have a Celsius measurement, double it, and then add 32, and that'll give you an approximate measurement of how much that Celsius would be to a Fahrenheit measurement.